What's up, guys? Thanks for watching Kodiak MD. I'm Amir and this is my Kodiak 100. I'm going to be flying it and doing some cool stuff with it. I'm going to take you guys along for the ride. If you guys have been watching me on YouTube, about every week or so, I'm getting messages or an email about where I got my Morse code shirts from. And I had a couple of extra ones made, and I'm gonna do a giveaway through this video. I'm going to give you guys an email address and a code sometime through the video, and the first 5 people to email me at that address with the code I give you, I'm gonna mail you guys one of the Morse code shirts. So that's how you guys can get one. Stay tuned through the video and you guys will get the code. Subject for today is gonna be why I chose the Kodiak and not a Caravan. I get a lot of questions from people asking me, well, man, why didn't you get a Caravan, and you know, what led you to the Kodiak? And so I thought it would be a nice video to kind of explain the reasons why the Kodiak was a better airplane for me and what led me to the Kodiak. So, you know, before I even ever flew an airplane, I was flying with my buddy Matt in his jet, and one day we landed in Long Beach. We landed at OCR, and we parked the plane, and I see this super cool looking airplane with big wheels, and I kind of looked at it and I was like, hey Matt, what is this thing? And he was like, oh, well, this is a Caravan, it's a turboprop. And he started explaining to me what it was, and I was looking at it and I was like, man, this is like pretty awesome. I think I want to fly one of these. And so Matt was, you know, his position was, well, hey, we're at OCR, Rich, he's the Caravan guy, he's the guy you need to talk to. And so this was before I had ever even met Rich. I basically got Rich's number and called Rich and started talking to him about a Caravan. And so I went down this road for a couple of weeks, looking at the Caravan, pictures, videos, Instagram, YouTube, I mean, you name it. I was just, you know, involved with looking at the Caravan. And so, you know, I said to Rich, I said, hey, let's do a demo flight. Is that something you can set up? And, you know, Rich was, he's the Caravan guy. He said, I'll call Cessna and I'll set something up and we'll see what we can figure out. Well, at the same time, when I started researching all of this, I started asking other people, well, if I'm interested in a Caravan, what is similar to a Caravan that I should also be looking at? It's kind of like, you know, if you're looking for an SUV and I'm looking at a Range Rover, I'm going to ask people, well, what else is similar to a Range Rover? Because I don't want to just go look at one car, one SUV, and base my choice just off of that. It makes sense to kind of look at some other brands and other manufacturers. And so, you know, not really knowing a lot about airplanes, I definitely knew that there had to be a competitor, and I wanted to know what that was and what the differences were. And so as I was talking to people, I posed a question to my brother-in-law, Bob, and, you know, he was like, well, man, you should look at a Kodiak. Those things, they look mean and they're really cool, and you should look at a Kodiak. So I had no idea what a Kodiak even was. So here I go on YouTube, Instagram, and pull up a Kodiak and pictures and videos. And at that point, I found Mark Brown, who is the demo pilot for Kodiak. And I reached out to Mark on Instagram and I said, hey Mark, look, I'm working on getting my private pilot's license, and I'm interested in getting a demo possibly in a Kodiak, because I'd like to buy one of these airplanes and I want to see what the differences are. At that point, Rich set up a demo and he said, hey, where do you want to go to? And I said, look, like, I'd like to go with my family to Vegas, because that's a trip that I would do. I have an office in Vegas, I work out in Vegas, and it's something that I'd like to do. And so, we set up a demo with Cessna, with their Caravan. And with that being said, Mark Brown also set up a demo flight in a Kodiak. And Mark asked me, well, where do you want to go with the Kodiak? And I said, look, I want to do a similar flight to Vegas. Why don't we go to Lake Havasu? And I was going to go out with my family and hang out on the river for the weekend. And Mark said, yeah, that's a perfect flight for the Kodiak. Let's do that. So Rich set up the Caravan demo, and Mark Brown from Kodiak set up the Kodiak demo. Now, sales plays a little bit of a role in a lot of this. At the time, I had probably 5 hours of flight experience. I knew nothing about airplanes or flying, and I just didn't really know much about aviation. And so the day came for the Caravan flight. We showed up at John Wayne, and it sucks to say, but the demo experience just really wasn't that great. It was pretty crummy. I've bought stuff, and I've bought expensive stuff, and buying an airplane is expensive. And so I felt like the demo was just handled very, very poorly. Two pilots showed up with the Caravan. It was a brand new Caravan, and the two pilots really didn't know much about the airplane, what the availability was if I wanted to order one. There just wasn't a lot of information. It was more like, hey, just get inside the airplane and sit in the back, and we're gonna fly to Vegas. And okay, fine. So, I got into the Caravan and I was just looking around, and at the time I had been in some 172s at the flight school, and the Caravan was just kind of looked to be like a 172, okay? And so it just wasn't so impressive. It looked old and it looked dated. Now, we flew to Vegas. They took an IFR route to Vegas, and it took forever to get there. There were no headsets in the airplane. There were no brochures. There was just really not much. It was one of these things where it was really fun. We got in the Caravan. We landed in Vegas, and we got out, and myself and my family, and my sister was there with her family, and we went and hung out and had a scheduled flight back on Sunday. And again, it was the same thing. On Sunday, it was the same pilots, and there just wasn't a lot of information relayed to me. Like, I was asking, well, if I want to order one, what's the lead time? What's the cost? And there just didn't seem to be a care to really necessarily sell me the airplane. It was more just a flight to like show me the plane. And with that being said, it just wasn't so great. So when we got out of the Caravan and we got home, my wife was really unimpressed with it, and she kind of looked at me and was like, don't buy that airplane, because I'm not flying in it, and the kids aren't gonna fly in it. So just, if you want to buy a plane, buy something else, but don't buy the Caravan. And I was a little discouraged as well. And so I kind of talked to Rich about it. I talked to Matt about it, and they essentially were kind of like, well, that is what it is. It's the Caravan, and it's a great airplane. And okay, cool. The next week was my demo with the Kodiak with Mark Brown. And so the sales experience just started off so much better. When we showed up at John Wayne, and we were waiting for the plane to come in, and Mark Brown comes in the demo plane, and we're all standing there watching it come in to land. And just as he landed, the Kodiak just looked so cool. When you have the plane side by side, I mean, the Kodiak just, in my eyes, looks a lot cooler. And that was the first thing. The wow factor was better. And so, he taxis in, and shuts everything down and gets out of the plane and introduces himself. And hey guys, I'm Mark, this is the Kodiak. And it was done very nicely. You know, he had the doors open, there was brochures on all the seats, there was headsets on the seats, he had shirts for Kodiak shirts for everybody. And it was just a good initial experience. And that's kind of, you know, the first impression, right? First impression is important. And that was the first impression. It was like, oh, wow, you know, this guy cares about selling me a plane, number one. And number two, you know, there's headsets on the seats and there's brochures, and, you know, he knows a lot about the airplane, and he's talking to me about the plane and he's showing me features of it. And, you know, that went a long way with me. So the second part to that is flying to Havasu. I got to sit up front with Mark. And, you know, Mark is one of these guys who has a lot of experience with Kodiaks. He flies a Kodiak every day. It's what he does. He knows the airplane probably better than, you know, most people in the world. And just sitting up front with him and talking to him and asking him questions and stuff like that, I mean, he was able to answer a lot of questions, and I felt very comfortable with it. So that was the start to my whole journey in picking an airplane. And you know, we flew our flight to Havasu. It was a great flight. We flew VFR. It was a lot shorter than, you know, had we have gone IFR. The experience was better. And, you know, when we landed on the ground, my wife walked up to me and she was like, this airplane is sick. If you're going to buy an airplane, you buy this one. And, you know, that was kind of like, oh, wow, okay, well, she's on board. So, yeah, let's, so I'll kind of now, I got a little list made here about, you know, the reasons why, after doing a lot of research, I chose the Kodiak, and I'll start to go with that. So the first thing was how the demo went and first impressions. Buying an airplane, you want to be buying it from a company that backs the airplane and you feel comfortable with. I felt very comfortable with Kodiak, the demo, and how all that stuff went. The next thing I had was the looks and the design. I mean, in my eyes, you put a Kodiak and a Caravan next to each other, it's just the Kodiak just looks so much beefier. It looks like a military plane. The Caravan, it looks cool, but it's old and it's dated. It was designed in the 70s, the 80s, and nothing has really changed from it. And that goes to the next thing that goes is the certifications. The Kodiak was designed in 2008. I think it was certified in 2009. When you look at a Caravan, those certifications are from like the 80s. Nothing's really changed. So when I talked to Mark Brown about that, he was talking to me a lot about the safety factors, the design of the seats, the design of the airframe, the design of the windshield. And all of that to me made it seem like a much safer airplane, since it's gone through a lot stricter safety standards and certifications. And that was something that was super important for me, was safety. And so just knowing that the plane was recently designed gave me more confidence, and I felt better about it. The next thing is, when you sit inside the Kodiak, you'll see that the visibility outside is very, very good. It's very open. You can see out of all of the windows, and it's really, really nice. When you sit in a Caravan, you don't have the same feeling. It seems a lot smaller, and you can't really see out of the windows really well. And that's something that Kodiak talks about when they market the airplane. And it's more so that Caravans are more designed for cargo and shipping, and a Kodiak is more designed for transporting people. And so inside, being comfortable inside, the Kodiak seems to be a lot better visibility, and the comfort level is higher. You feel like you have more room in this airplane. And that kind of leads me to the interior of the Caravan. So when you buy a Caravan, it basically comes with a really crappy airliner interior. And if you look at it, it really sucks. I mean, you're spending $3 million or so on an airplane, and you're getting like a really crummy interior. And Caravan or Cessna doesn't really care to modify that or upgrade that. Now, what most people do, and what I was going to do, is I was going to get what's called an executive interior in it. Now that executive interior is not from Cessna. It's called the Oasis interior. You send the airplane to an outside company, and that outside company retrofits that interior, the executive interior, into the Caravan. And the cost of that was, I think at the time, it was about $300,000 or so. So you buy the airplane, take all the seats out, gut the interior, and have an aftermarket company do a Oasis interior. And it looks nice. You know, it's kind of more of a private jet style interior, but again, it's very cramped and it feels smaller inside. The Kodiak, you can buy it with what they call the Summit interior. It's the executive interior. The seats look really nice. They're super comfortable. All the seats recline, and you can move the seats back and forth very easily. You just kind of pull the handle here and you can slide the seats forward. So you can reposition the inside of the aircraft really easily. And that was something really nice. And the other thing that I really liked is these seats come out in a matter of like 20 seconds. So I can take all the seats out of this airplane in under 5 minutes. And if you have a Caravan with the Oasis interior, you can't do that. You know, those seats are like in there. It's not so easy to get out. So, and I've had the seats out a couple times. We've had dirt bikes in here. We've had bikes in here, e-bikes. And it's really nice being able to configure the airplane to load all your stuff in it without having a lot of hardship doing that. So that was a big sales factor for me. Now the Caravan is a bigger airplane than the Kodiak. The Kodiak is smaller. It's kind of like the smaller Caravan, not a Grand Caravan, but when it's all said and done, the Grand Caravan is a bigger airplane. But I didn't care about the size so much. I cared about the quality and you know, the actual airplane. So you know, I was okay having a little bit of a smaller plane. Now with that comes, you know, the cargo pod. This is a great airplane because we have the cargo pod underneath, and that cargo pod allows us to put a lot of room, a lot of bags and all kinds of stuff under there. If you went with a short Caravan, you can't get a small cargo, or you can't get a cargo pod. And the Grand Caravan, of course, has the cargo pod, but it's a bigger airplane. So it's nice to be able to have a little bit of a smaller plane. I have it fit in a hangar. It's easier for me to fly, and I get the cargo pod with it. The next thing I want to talk about is just the overall quality. When you see the Kodiak and you touch the pieces of the Kodiak and like these air vents, the lights, it's a night and day difference between what you find in a Grand Caravan. When I sat in the Grand Caravan, it just seemed like a pile of junk, and it's just a bunch of pieces off a 172, a 182. The air vents look like they're out of a 1970s Cadillac. These are like nice machined air vents, and that kind of stuff is all throughout the airplane. When you see the cockpit of the Kodiak versus the cockpit of the Caravan, it's so much nicer. It's just a nicer airplane, and you know, it just shows when you sit in them side by side. There's a big difference in terms of quality. So that was one of the reasons why I chose the Kodiak. Other things that are really cool is the Kodiak has inflatable door seals. So when you close all the doors, the seals are pneumatic, they pump up. And one of the things that does is it makes the interior of the cabin quieter. You actually really don't need headsets sitting in the back of the Kodiak. You can have a full conversation and really not need headsets. Now the headsets are great. You can listen to music and everybody can talk, but the interior sound is a lot less in the Kodiak than it was in the Caravan. And that was something that was really nice. What I also liked as a pilot is the Kodiak has auto trim. So when you hit the flaps, it actually auto trims. You know, like when you're in like a Caravan or a 172, 182, you hit the flaps, the plane starts to balloon. The Kodiak will balloon a little bit, but the trim is automatic, so it auto trims, and it you know, you don't have to like push the yoke down so hard to keep wings level. So something, you know, stuff like that is really nice. Performance. So performance on the Kodiak is better than the Caravan. Its takeoff and landing is less. I think that the range is a little bit higher in the Kodiak as well, and I believe that the speed is just a touch faster than the Caravan. So that's another reason why I went with the Kodiak. the one thing with the Caravan is it can seat 2 more people than the Kodiak. And initially I wanted like the biggest airplane I can get. I wanted to carry as many people as I could. Now that I'm an airplane owner, I actually like having a smaller airplane. I don't like having 10 people in the plane. I like having 4, 5, 6. When you start getting a lot of people in the airplane and going on a trip, it's tough. It's tough to get everybody situated, everybody coordinated, loaded, unloaded, all the bags. And, you know, I'm kind of overdoing that. So having a bigger airplane just means more people would be with me. And, you know, as much as it sounds kind of cheesy, but I like having less people in the airplane. And so, you know, this is almost like the perfect size. The way this is set up right now, it's 8 people. And that's plenty. Having more, you know, yeah, the Caravan can do it. Now there's a Kodiak 900 that can fit 2 more people, but I'm loving having, I mean, I almost want to take 2 seats out and have it seat 6. So, you know, that's one thing with the Caravan. The other thing is also, you know, everything I'm talking about, the Kodiak is a more expensive airplane than a Caravan. The Caravan at the time was a few $100,000 cheaper than the Kodiak. So, you know, you are paying for the nicer fit, the nicer finish, the higher quality. You know, there is a cost associated to that, but I wasn't looking for the cheapest airplane. I was looking for the best airplane. And so I was okay paying a little bit more to get a higher quality and an airplane that, you know, I felt more comfortable with. But we're gonna walk around and I'm gonna just show a couple of things that I like about the Caravan or the Kodiak that is not found on the Caravans. The one other thing I didn't talk about is attachment points for cargo throughout the whole plane. And we have little hangers on this stuff. I hang headsets on this, but you know, these are all throughout the whole plane, also on the floor tracks. Why don't you come outside? The carpet snaps out super easy in the Kodiak. They're just on snaps. And so you can take the carpet out of the airplane in a matter of just a few minutes. And now you have essentially, you can, you know, when we threw the bikes and stuff in there, I just took the carpet out and rolled it out. And, you know, that way I don't have to worry about getting the carpet dirty. So that's something really nice. That's not available in the Caravan. Now let's talk about outside of the plane. If you look at the flap tracks on the Kodiak, it's something they talk about and it's something you see. When you look at the Caravan flap tracks, they just look like they're off a 182 or something. They're a little bit bigger than a 182, but they just don't look beefy like this. This is like a strong machined piece. And you find this kind of quality throughout the entire plane. It's not just like, oh, they got these super cool, you know, strong flap tracks. No, it's like throughout everything. When you see the difference, there's just a stronger component to it, and there's more work that's put into it. So, you know, looking at stuff like this starts to make me really like the airplane and like the quality and the construction behind it. Something nice up here, and you know, this has been shown before, but you can step up here and pull this out. And this is a magnetic fuel dipstick. So you can see that there's about 200 pounds of fuel in this tank. So if you're running the fuel a little bit lower, this is really nice because you can really see what's in here without having to climb up on the wings and trying to like sump the fuel and stuff like that. This is on both sides. So, you know, a lot of times I'll use this just to make sure, you know, there's fuel in there. You don't have to go up on the wings and stuff like that. That gives you 3 ways to check the fuel. This, you have your fuel gauges, and then you have the counter, the fuel remaining counter in the G1000. So you have 3 ways to verify that you have fuel. So, you know, running out of fuel, you would be pretty stupid. You know, if you'd really have to be not paying attention. So that's kind of something that I think is nice. The biggest thing for me, looking at the Kodiak versus the Caravan, is the split wing design. And again, this is something that is talked about a lot online. What this does is it gives you 2 different wings. And why that's important is at slow speed, when this airplane stalls, the stall recovery is, you can recover it with an aileron. And you know, when you stall and drop a wing, most people's first reaction, especially lower time pilots, is to correct with aileron. And you know, that's not supposed to be the right way. The right way is supposed to be opposite rudder. Well, with the Kodiak at full stall, you have full aileron control, which means that if you dip left or right, you can straighten the plane straight out with the ailerons. And so a stall spin in the Kodiak is pretty hard to do. There's been a couple of Caravan crashes where there's been a stall spin and it's unrecoverable. In a Kodiak, it's a bit safer because rather than getting inverted, you can stay right side up and try to recover from the stall. And so as a newer pilot, for me, that was something that was like a huge selling point. And when you go up and fly the plane and actually get to stall, you can see the stall characteristics of the airplane, and it's very docile. And that, to me, was just, it was pretty mega. Let's look inside. You look at the yoke on the Kodiak, it's just cool and it's just nice. And you look at the yoke on a Caravan, and it just kind of, again, looks like it came out of like the 182 bin. The other thing is you have an electronic LCD screen for the AC, and just the cockpit, the layout of it is very clean. There's no steam gauges, everything's digital, everything's electronic. It just looks cool and it looks nice, and you're paying for the quality. One other thing, you can see this machine piece right here where the yoke sits in. This is like out of an aluminum block, and go compare that to, like, you know, another airplane like a Caravan, and you're gonna find a piece of plastic right there. And so again, when you start to look at these little fine details, you start to see that throughout the whole airplane. So we talked about the cargo pod a bit. I just wanted to give you guys an up close look at just how big the cargo pod is. So we'll have the camera come and zoom in here, and you can see that this is really big. You can fit a lot of gear and cargo inside here, and you have basically 2.5 of these. One here, one in the front, and then you got a smaller one in the back. So this really is very useful when you're going on long trips, ski trips, stuff like that. You can put a lot of weight in the cargo pod, and it's pretty nice. If you park the plane outside and you want to sump the fuel, it's pretty easy to do. They got this box right here, and what we'll do is just open this up, and you pull this out, and all of these are the drains. So all of this is pretty easy to you know, sump the fuel if you think that there's some water, it's been sitting outside or something like that. I told you guys through the video that I'm gonna give you guys a code and an email address. That email address is gonna be quack.bob_0m@icloud.com. Quack, QUACK.BOB_0m@icloud.com, and the code is 5326. You guys, first 5 people to send that to me, I'm gonna mail you guys out some of my Morse code shirts and a little gift for you guys. I think those are just kind of some of the features that, you know, I like on the outside of the plane. I think I've covered a lot of stuff, and these are the reasons why I like the Kodiak. It's been a great airplane for me. And the last thing I'll say is, when you're flying around and your call sign is a Kodiak, it's just cool. You know, when you say Caravan, it reminds people of like an old Chrysler. And you know, you talk to controllers and you're like, oh, I'm Caravan, you know, 8231 Bravo. It just sounds so much cooler when you're a Kodiak. And you know, I think the Caravan is for the Wilburs, and the Kodiak is a little cooler to fly. So I hope this clears up and gives you guys some insight as to why I like the Kodiak and why it was such a great airplane for me, and the reasons why I chose it versus a Caravan. And I hope you guys like the content, and we're gonna do some other cool stuff coming up that I'll record, and I'll see you guys soon.